Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live for a Q&A with the lovely Alayah. My name is Sarah Lomelin, and I am the Executive Director of Philanthropy Together. Philanthropy Together is a newly launched 5-year initiative to connect and catalyze the Giving Circle movement. And our mission is to democratize and diversify philanthropy through the power of giving circles. By the way, if you don't know what a giving circle is, you should go to whatisagivincircle.com. Literally, whatisagivincircle.com. It's a new website that will get you through, all the basics for giving circles. But today, I'm joined by Alayah Glenn, who started her giving circle after graduating this summer from Launchpad, our 5-week virtual training program for anyone looking to start a giving circle. Before we get started, I want to say that the deadline to join our fall cohort is coming up fast, like literally tomorrow. So we want to be sure to give everyone the opportunity to hear firsthand about the Launchpad program and the great work that Alayah is doing to further the movement. So Alayah, thank you so much for joining our chat today. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your giving circle?
Yes, hi Sada. It's so good to be with you today, to be back in the Zoom room and in the internet space with you. I'm Alayah Glenn. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a first generation American, currently based in Atlanta. And I'm so proud to have graduated from the first cohort of Launchpad. I'm working with the senior leadership of an organization called the Donors of Color Network. And I'm excited to have, through the resources offered to me through Launchpad, organized the Rushing River Giving Circle this summer. And I'm really, really pleased to be here to talk to you about my experience.
Great, let's get started. So first of all, what attracted you to Launchpad? Why did you join?
Oh, so I'm actually convinced that Launchpad was an opportunity that sort of manifested as an answer to questions and concerns that I'd been grappling with myself as we found ourselves not just in the pandemic of coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, but also this, history's long pandemic of racial injustice and anti-Black systemic racism. And so for a long time, based on my personal background coming from folks who immigrated to this country looking for a better opportunity, born and raised in New York City in a working class background, but through the power of education and a quality education, now having proximity to networks of quite privileged and, justice-oriented young folks who are interested in doing anti-racist work, the questions that I would ask myself is, what is the best, highest use of me in this position now? And what can I do to leverage that proximity to advance justice in the world and to do good in the world? And so through this developing proximity also to philanthropy and to different opportunities to advance social justice, I was really excited about what the philanthropic sector offered, but I didn't really see myself in the story of philanthropy. It's a very white sector. It feels really dominated by folks who come from affluence and wealth themselves. And I just didn't know what I could, how could I participate? What could I offer? But through learning about Launchpad and through learning about giving circles, I recognized that, in fact, giving circles are a part of a deep and rich cultural identity that is rooted in diasporic communities across the world. And in my own culture identity, as the daughter of Jamaican folks, we call our giving circles parnas. And actually, in my life, my mom's and my family's participation in cooperative economics and in collective giving was a very clear cultural tradition that looked a lot, that is a giving circle. I didn't have that language for myself, but when I put those two things together, it felt like, especially in this political moment, a really clear way for me to execute this vision that I had. And really luckily, Launchpad literally offered me every single tool I needed to execute and to help build and organize the circle, but it also gave me a sense of the confidence and a real affirmation that in fact that this is a place where folks of color belong, that folks of color are meant to have decision-making power in philanthropy, and that with that really critical change can happen.
Totally. No, I love it. I love it because, yeah, definitely, giving circles are not new, and they're not American, and they're going, on all over the world with different names, right? But it's like the perfect way for everyday givers to participate in philanthropy and to be intentional and to be strategic about, how to give, because I think, yes, especially now, there's so many things that we cannot control, but who do we give? And what organizations do we support? That is something that we can totally control. So,
totally. And if I could add to that, I would say,
yes, sure.
I would also say it's about how we, how folks of color in my case see ourselves in this story of helping change happen, and how it's not a billion, it doesn't take the $1 billion grants. It's actually what we can give, what we can contribute, our time and talent. That's really critical to building movement. And so for me, Launchpad really framed that and helped me to understand that actually it was important and that we all have something to contribute.
Totally. Thank you. So how would you describe your experience in the program? I know you started to touch upon that, but could you go a little deeper, maybe about the resources that you got, about, the people that you met, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. I would say when I think about my experience, certainly the surprise and the joy is what is top of mind for me. I was not prepared for how much I would enjoy spending time each week with the community of folks who came to Launchpad with their own visions of a circle of an opportunity to advance narratives for giving in completely different arenas. We were an international cohort, which is something I totally didn't expect at all, but that offered a dynamic that was really rich and engaging. And then I would also say that in this moment where folks were really isolated and that community was quite hard to come by in a very real way, Launchpad offered me this space that I was hungry for, to engage with like-minded folks and to take inspiration and enthusiasm and energy about the undercurrents of change and how folks were really digging in. To the point of the tools and the curriculums, I would also say that I couldn't have appreciated until getting into the actual work of my giving circle, how accessible and intuitive and deeply meaningful the curriculum that we were offered would serve me in actually getting this off the ground. So while Rushing River, my giving circle, was piloting our first round of giving, it was almost in perfect alignment with our weekly sessions at Launchpad. And each of those weeks offered a super accessible and digestible tool or idea or approach alongside the coaching that we got from not just, of course, you and Isis and the incredible Philanthropy Together team, but these mentors that we would hear from in the course of our sessions, and also the wealth of coaching and support that was built into those times. I think I just felt really spoiled by the level of support and intentionality that was delivered. And also the resources, like the toolkit that sort of we started with and kept with us, is something I literally refer to and reference routinely in continuing to build our giving circles. So beyond that, I think also just hearing from the folks in community and also building a network of people who still I'm in contact with and who reach out to me for insights or even updates about my circle and vice versa. I think we were all our cohort was really interested in each other, excited and supportive of what was being built, and really invested, I think, in each other. And I didn't expect that at all. I would say that it went by a lot faster than I was prepared for. And I think at the end of it, I recognized that I could have continued to benefit from what was being offered long beyond that. And with those tools, I really can. So it was a powerful experience.
I love it. This, warms my heart, and just, hearing from different people that are already, launching their giving circles after Launchpad is really powerful. So I want to hear, how is your giving circle doing post Launchpad? Like, what has been your experience with your giving circle after Launchpad? What organizations are you supporting? Just tell me more.
Yeah, so I will say that even in the middle of Launchpad, I was certainly concerned and nervous, and I think needed a lot of affirmation, to my point earlier, that the leadership from folks of color in this philanthropic space is right and correct, and that my inclination that a BIPOC-led, cross-race, cross-class community of folks focused on giving to Black and Brown LGBT-led activism and art in the deep American South was actually a critical need, not just in the history of our movements. When we talk about what social change looks like, it's when grassroots folks organize together demanding justice. And so much of that is rooted in the South. And so talking about this vision that I had, what was really exciting and often scary was owning that space and asking for that space and inviting people to be in that space with me. And I think the tools and the sort of framework that Philanthropy Together and that Launchpad offered in terms of structuring it around a values setting and then waiting for the sort of community to come around something was really, it happened. I didn't expect it, but it totally happened in our giving circle. So that was exciting. It's often a little scary because it's an exercise in building a vision that feels really critical. What in our first round, which we still feel like we're an experimental community. It still feels like we're deciding and iterating who we are. But our core values in sourcing and sustaining movement is part of our DNA. So we've been really so excited to grant to Black and Brown women who are organizers in the Deep South in states like Florida, Mississippi, in Louisiana, folks where areas where the organizing that is contributing to this moment we're all in, and the narratives and the ideas that are springing up around social justice are being led by these people in the South. But they don't get the investment or the visibility that exists in other spaces. And so when we talk about Soul Sisters Leadership Collective that's based in Florida, that is advancing gender justice for Black and Brown girls and gender nonconforming folks, it's critical to our movement. We've given to the Montgomery, Alabama Bail Fund. We've given to a climate justice organization based in New Orleans, Louisiana. We were also really proud to give to the Jackson, Mississippi Bail Fund. Their protest post George Floyd and their activism around the Movement for Black Lives policy agenda is really critical in an area like Jackson, Mississippi, where you can imagine our philanthropic dollars aren't flowing. And so while we're small, we really feel that we're carving out a path and a tradition and also a set of principles for our community of givers, the folks in our community, around educating and having a political ideology about how and where we give, even in a small and humble way now, and especially in this election cycle, especially in this moment that is going to shape our futures and generations. What does it look like to channel dollars to the folks who are leading the most and who need it the most? So yeah, the toolkit is a blueprint for me daily. And as we continue to build and expand our expertise, it's also been really such a gift to come back and touch base with folks like Isis and you for coaching and support as we hit bumps that we couldn't have expected. Yeah, it's sort of giving birth. It's like growing a baby and giving a child maybe. I'm not a parent, but I think as making something a vision to reality is has a lot of ups
Totally.
and downs. Yeah, but
Your
it's
giving
been really
circle is your
rewarding.
baby.
Yes, it's my baby, and it's been really rewarding, and I'm so happy I did it.
That's great. So let me ask you something. If you hadn't started a giving circle, how would you have supported your community?
I see myself as a philanthropist, and I like to think that I would continue to put my dollars, to put, my money where my mouth is in terms of my values and what I see as critical to like my continued safety as a Black woman. I wouldn't want to leave this conversation without naming that it's organizing and activism and artists that are making visible the critical issues of our time. When we think about the unjust killing of Breonna Taylor, we can look to activists across the country who advanced that narrative and made that issue national. And when we talk about what our path towards November looks like and beyond, and how we build safety and security for our communities, I think we have to be willing to take a stand, and we have to be willing to put our money where our mouth is. So I think that I would continue to do that. I think also my work at the Donors of Color Network and our work in supporting the movement for Black lives and really continuing to make a major investment feels like a part of my work and my legacy. But when I think about what my work and my contribution to justice looked like before now, it feels like my giving circle is the most essential and the most reflective of actually my values. Like, policy has been an area of interest. Electoral justice continues to be an area of interest. Like poll working and helping and making calls and sending texts for particular issues, or encouraging folks to access a number of tools that speak to how we advance justice, especially beyond the ballot, and especially in these conditions. I think that's what I would be doing, but my giving circle feels so much more essential, and feels like it feels like organizing work itself. And I think for me and my values, I think organizing is something that I'm turning to in this moment for hopefulness, and as we think about the future.
Thank you, Alayah. And what would you say to someone who is on the fence about starting a giving circle? Like, it's kind of, someone that is thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I have the time or the energy, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I was certainly that person. And what was said over and over to me as a part of my experience at Launchpad was that you have to do it. And as I thought about this, and I think about this question, and I think about what has been really rewarding for me as a result of this experience, I think it's just true that if there's like something on your heart, if there is a mission or an idea that doesn't exist in the world in this critical moment, like, who will do it if you don't? When we think about, like what we're all called to do as human beings and people in these really challenging conditions, what hopefulness looks like is an orientation around action. And I think I would offer to that person and like nudge them gently towards like an accountability and a responsibility to show up in this historic moment as someone who was actively investing in a future that we can all be proud of. And I really think that giving circles have the capacity and the power to accomplish that. I think it's a microcosm of our movements. Like, what does it look like to create a community that exists for a particular philanthropic, like meaningfully, strategically good purpose? I think that's all like sort of parts of the questions that we're asking ourselves in these moments. And I think I would say to that person, like, this is what you do. This is part of what you're meant to do. You can, in the way that we can make time for the actions and the areas of life that are critical, like this also must be a part of our practice and our discipline towards hopefulness. And I would also say that it's yours to experiment with. there's no right or wrong way. Like, there are frameworks that are meant for you to take ideas and inspiration, but the brilliance of this opportunity is that you get to make it what it is. So if you really only have an hour a week to dedicate to it, what is it that you can do in an hour a week? Try, see. I mean, I think, at least in my experience, you'll be really surprised. You'll be really surprised about the folks who show up to support you, and your hour can become someone else's 3 or 4 hours. And sure enough, I think this person, speaking to this imaginary person, I think that, if you build it, they will come. So build it.
Totally. I love it. I love it. And I love your words around, hopefulness and orientation to action, because yes, it's, it is time for action. And I think giving circles are the perfect way to get in community with, values aligned individuals to just do good. So Alayah, thank you so much for spending time chatting with me today. Your story is incredibly inspiring and motivating, and we really appreciate you sharing it with others. So again, for everybody listening to us, Launchpad, the fall cohort will get started on October 6th, and the deadline to submit an interest form is tomorrow. So the link is in the chat. You can fill it right now. It takes less than 2 minutes. To submit an interest form, you need to visit philanthropytogether.org/launchpad. Again, that's philanthropytogether.org/launchpad. After you submit your interest form, someone from our team will be in touch with you to lock in your spot. And thank you again, Alayah, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.